Good evening and welcome back to the Decameron Film Festival. This is day number 3 and we are live on the evening of the 22nd of November 2024. Decameron Film Festival number 5, actually. This is year number 5 of the Decameron Film Festival. And yesterday we had Morgoth on. We talked about the shooting party. And the first day on the premiere, we had Greg Johnson on, and we talked about La Dolce Vita. As usual, you can find the festival schedule on the website, decameronfilmfestival.com. We have about 20 guests, so fewer guests than usual. And today we're going to talk to Duarte Branquinho. And then tomorrow we're going to have Shambolics on. We're going to talk about JFK from 1991. And then we have... The festival continues after that, and we wrap up around 8th of December. And before we start, I just want to recommend that you join the Telegram channel. So on the regular Telegram channel, the main channel, GTK Radio, we have a link as well to the dedicated Decameron Film Festival channel. And on that channel, I post a lot of other useful links and other things that are useful that I don't want to clog up the main channel with. So please join us there as well. It's just at Decameron Film Festival on Telegram. So that is very good. And as usual, of course, you can send questions and super chats through Odyssey and through Entropy. That's entropystream.live/GTK. And now I want to welcome tonight's guest from Portugal, Duarte Branquinho. Welcome back. Good to have you back. You were on last year, and now you're back for the second time on the Decameron Film Festival. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Frody. It's an honor to be here again. So let's go. Thank you.
Let's go. Do you want to say anything by way of introduction to people who might not know you? Do you want to say anything about what you do? Just very brief introduction.
Well, last year you did a very formal introduction, and I think some people, the ones who don't know me, thought, oh, maybe this is some kind of intellectual geek, but it's not the case, as you know. Frody, I'm just uno di noi, as our Italian friends say it. And well, you know, I've been very active I was very active in the so-called identitarian movement in Portugal and a bit all over Europe. I now mostly write for several magazines and some online publications. So and I'm happy to collaborate with you in the Decameron Festival, which I love. So it's an honor to be here again. So Frody, thank you.
Very good.
Once more.
Thank you so much. All right, let's dive in. Let's dig into tonight's film. Today's film. It is, I can't say the Portuguese title, but No or the Vainglory of Command is the English title from 1990. No or the Vainglory of Leading or To Lead or something like that. There's an alternate title. So this is a Portuguese film from 1990, which is, I've never heard of it before. I've never seen it before, and it's a fascinating film. So I'm glad you brought it to my attention. So yeah, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about what this film is, maybe a bit about how you discovered it, and so on.
Yeah. So first of all, you were talking about the translation of the title. And unfortunately, in English, I don't know why, they translated it as No or the Vainglory of Command. But actually, as you see it in Portuguese, it's not no, but non. Because and you've watched the movie, and you can see why this is important, because it starts as it ends. So this is a quite an eternal return aspect that it's very important to the movie. I don't know why the English translator translated just no, but okay. Well, I have to say that it's not quite. I do love this movie, but it's not. It was it was not only my choice. Last year, you remember, I brought a French film, and many friends asked me, why didn't you bring a Portuguese film, even foreign friends? I said,
Mhm.
well, because I do love this one, and I wanted to discuss it with Frody. Oh, no, 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 come on. If you ever go back to the Decameron Festival, you must discuss a Portuguese film.
Mhm.
And I thought, come on, which film can I talk about? Well,
Mhm.
this one is brilliant in so many ways, but it has of course, it's a film about the history of Portugal. So, as a
Mhm.
Portuguese myself, and trying to bring some of the Portuguese culture to our European friends, I think this is a good choice. And actually, with a good friend of mine who also loves this movie very much,
Mhm.
uh, we had long conversations about it. We rewatched the film several times, and it was quite fun. It wasn't preparation like for classes, so it
Mhm.
was just fun rewatching it and thinking, oh, if this film was somehow strange at the time, nowadays it's completely crazy, because nowadays, in this age of wokeism and, and these crazy theories, decolonization and gender and everything, it has some scenes that I don't know, for these politically correct people, they I think it will drive them crazy, and that's good, obviously.
Yeah, another good thing is that it's available on YouTube. So anyone who wants to watch it can search for the original title, the Portuguese title, on YouTube, and you'll find it with English subtitles. And so it's very accessible. Can you tell me a little bit about what place this film has in Portuguese culture? Is it a classic that everyone has seen and is familiar with, or is it a bit of an unusual film? How has it been received, or how is it regarded in Portuguese society?
Well, yeah, it is quite unusual, because I have to tell my own story, because
Hmm.
when this film came out, I was still I was finishing high school, and of course I loved, I already loved cinema, so I was watching movies all the time,
Hmm.
and of course mainly American movies, because it was a period of American domination of cultural American culture everywhere, and of course there were a lot of Vietnam movies and American War movies, and there's a Portuguese movie about the last Portuguese war, the overseas war, and I said, I have to see it. And I spoke with some friends, but unfortunately, a very famous Portuguese comedian at the time was always joking with Manoel de Oliveira, the director, which is a
Hmm.
great Portuguese director. He actually lived, he died with 106 years old. So you can see his first film is from 1942. So he directed, I don't know, more than 30 feature films and documentaries, and he's quite a master of Portuguese cinema. But
Mm.
in pop culture, people usually said, "Oh, come on! Oh, this looks like a Manuel de Oliveira film," which means it's slow, it's boring, and no one likes to watch it. So, well, of course, people at the time loved films like, I don't know, Rambo or Rocky or things like that. So, of course, this Manuel de Oliveira was something of an intellectual, niche, bizarre director. And of course, the idea of a movie about the history of Portugal was very, very strange.
Mm-hmm.
And it was curious because to some people on the right, this was a movie about defeat and showing Portugal as a defeated nation. And this was bad, obviously.
Mm.
On the other hand, to the left, and those went crazy, they thought, oh, this film is quite dangerous because it it tells the history of Portugal, the way the Estado Novo, the new state, the Salazar's new state,
Mm-hmm.
told the history of Portugal, and that's obviously wrong. And it it has quite a nationalist style, and it can be dangerous. We know now with wokeism and everything that uh, the left just goes crazy at the mere sight of anything related to nationalism, history, preserving cultural or a national destiny, for instance. So as you can imagine, even at that time, many people thought this is a dangerous movie. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, finally, this is quite an enigmatic, even mysterious movie because
Mm-hmm.
uh, it leaves doubt. It's not a simple mind like what, let me check. It's not like a simple movie with a simple message. Uh, it, I think it really, really gets to you and it makes you doubt and think. And that's what I love about this movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Yesterday we had Morgoth on, and he picked the film "The Shooting Party," which is set in 1913, and it's about the upper class, and it's like they're sensing that the British Empire is coming apart, and it's sort of like their thoughts about feeling that they're sort of in decline, that they're at the end of their greatness in a way, and they're sort of their greatness is going to fall apart, and so that's an and so this is a very related film in that sense because it also deals with the loss of empire, the loss of greatness, and that connected with life in general, the loss of life, and so on. And it's a very, like you said, in a way it's a slow film because it's very much built on sort of philosophical dialogue. Can you take us through what the film is? Let's summarize or talk about the plot for the audience.
Yeah. Well, the plot is a journey through the history of Portugal, but um, the interesting thing is that the history of Portugal is told by a Portuguese officer, Portuguese second lieutenant,
Mm-hmm.
during a military operation in Angola. So during the overseas war.
Mm-hmm.
And this is quite curious because he's with his comrades, obviously, uh, and and of course he's telling the history of Portugal. He's focusing on a specific episodes of the history of Portugal, and of course these episodes are filmed and we can see the recreation of these episodes, but you and then you see the same actors that play the Portuguese soldiers play also the historical soldier, the historical episode. So it's and then you actually see, oh, okay, it's the same people. It's they're all Portuguese. It's like there's a continuity. There's the image of a continuity. That's very, very interesting. At the same time, the the characters, they speak directly to the camera, so they're speaking directly to you, to me. It's like you are one of them. It's like a mirroring effect, and it's like we're one of them. It kind of creates a sense of community, and that's very, very interesting. One of another thing that nowadays is very, very politically incorrect, but it's curious because the film starts with a scene that I love very much. It's a tracking shot around a tree in Angola, in Africa. So it's all around the tree, and I think, well, what does this mean? And by the end of the movie, we know what it means. It means none. It means that thing that doesn't begin nor ends. It's very, very enigmatic, mysterious, but eventually it's the meaning of life itself. It's quite a Nietzschean. I don't think Oliveira ever thought of this, but it's quite a Nietzschean idea, because there's not a beginning nor an end. And what do we live in this world? It's quite well. But after that, we see these soldiers in the middle of Africa, and they start talking to each other in a very philosophical way, as you said it. And this is very interesting, because it's quite of a shock. You say, listen, really, are these guys just speaking like that? And sometimes when I was young, I thought, this okay, this is for just for the filming purpose. But nowadays I can see, listen, you can be at the same time very brave, very foolish, but also very intelligent and doubtful and curious. We're not just one. We don't have one personality. We have several, and this is one main aspect of the movie. Oh, so you're showing here the second lieutenant Cabrita, which is the main character. He studied history at the university, so he starts telling the history of Portugal, those episodes that I was telling you about, and of course he focuses on several episodes. The first of them is Viriatus. Viriatus is a Lusitanian hero. Well, the Lusitanians were an ancient people, considered the origin, which are the origin of the Portuguese people. And of course, their hero Viriatus fought against Rome, against the Roman occupation, and Viriatus is a bit like Armin to the Germans, or Vercingetorix for the Gaul, or how is it called, Boudica for Britain. So there are a lot of barbarian heroes that fought against Rome. So and it's curious, because in this philosophical discussion between the military, the soldiers, they think, well, and the officer Cabrita says, well, Viriatus was against Rome. It's a bit like the Africans now against Portugal. Well, but this is a poor comparison. And there's one one of them says, "Why is it a poor comparison?" I said, "Listen, the Lusitanians were alone against Rome, and Rome was at the time civilization, the world, modernity. And now it is the Portuguese that are alone against the Turras, as it calls them, which is short for terrorists. That's what the Portuguese soldiers called the black African fighters, and they say, well, now we're alone against these terrorists that have with them the whole world. They have with them the so-called civilization and modernity. And one of them says, oh yeah, we are proudly alone. And this is one of the things, this was one of the slogans of the new state, of Salazar's new state. So we are proudly alone. And why? Because we saw that Europe was leaving Africa. We were seeing the growing superpowers, the USSR and the US on the other hand, and we saw, listen, we are the last European empire in Africa. And at the time, the Portuguese said, well, we were the first ones to arrive in Africa, and we'll be here forever. But of course, eventually we said, oh, we were the last ones to leave. But it's curious because in this philosophical discussion that they have questions like, well, what are we doing here? Is this are we fighting for the fatherland? And of course, one of them, I said, listen, I'm a patriot. This is patriotism. And they have it's curious because they do have a conversation that is not, it's not like nowadays. It's not on and off. It's not black or white. It's they all have doubts, and for me, the most interesting part is the what I call the identitarian question, because they say, okay, why are we fighting? Where is home? They ask themselves, where is home? And they say, well, because of course some of them say, no, listen, we're fighting for Portugal. It's better for them here in the colonies, in the provinces, because this is one of the changes that in the 1950s the new state changed the name of the colonies to overseas provinces. Like you are part of the mainland also. There's no difference between the mainland and the rest of the empire. But of course, things were not that simple or easy.
Yeah, it's an interesting film that it's an interesting setting that the person that we see in the image here, he's a historian, or he studied history, and so he puts their role as soldiers, as fighters, in a sort of a historical context, compares them with soldiers or fighters from history. And then you have these characters that represent almost different archetypes or different standpoints in the discussion. One is more of a patriotic idealist, and he sort of believes in what they're fighting for. And one is more of a cynic and thinks that it's sort of a little bit of a waste, but he's doing his duty anyway. And sort of, like you said, it's very much, they represent both viewpoints in a credible, sincere way. It's nothing is really cartoonish. This is, if you imagine that you had very intelligent, philosophically, poetically minded soldiers, this is sort of a conversation they could have had in reality, contemplating sort of the decline of their empire and what it's gone through in its history and what they are doing as soldiers. It's a very interesting framing of the whole film.
And I think, is it really going to end? Because I was telling about the identitarian question. They arrive at they reach this conclusion. They say, well, where is home? And one of them said, well, home is my village.
Mhm.
This is where home is. So there's and this is the shock that always and still remains, but it always existed in Portuguese nationalism, which is, well, well, not only in Portugal, of course, in France, in Britain, in other countries also. What do we stand for? Do we stand for the empire, for the multicultural, multiracial construction that the state represents, or are we fighting for our village, our family, our own? This is, and listen, as I told you at the beginning, it sounds simple, but it isn't. Because for some of us, it's like, oh, it's quite easy. I stand for the empire. Oh, no. I stand for our ethnic identity and nothing
Mm.
else. And we both know it's not that easy, because we all have cultural, historical heritage that we carry along. So if we are to be active in politics and political movements, and not only in ideological dreams, we have to take all of this in account. It's not an easy answer, and this film also this voyage that this film takes you on is also a reflection. It's you reflect on this. It's quite interesting.
And I think there's a difference there also between, for example, Northern Europe and Southern Europe, where we have, well, of course, both the Protestant and the Catholic traditions. That's a difference,
Yeah.
but also that the Northern European countries are more focused on their identity is a nation state identity. So the state and the nation and the ethnos, the race, everything is the same. Whereas if you have Portugal was an empire, Spain or Rome was an empire. And so if you have that identity, okay, well, what is the identity of the empire? What is, in that case, what is your identity? I think it's probably a more difficult question in Southern Europe, in many countries, like, for example, Portugal, than it would be in a country like Norway or Sweden, because the state, the country, the nation, the ethnos, the race, everything is the same, and so there is no ambiguity there. But when you get into empire instead of nation state, then the question is not as easy to answer.
Yes, and of course, there are two main factors that, of course, in the film are very important. First of them is the language, of course, and second, religion. Religion in a Catholic form, of course. But even so, there's a brilliant scene where Lieutenant Cabrita is talking about the Fifth Empire, which is kind of a prophecy of Father Antonio Vieira, which was a Portuguese priest, which was a philosopher and left very important writings. And one of them, called with a curious title called History of the Future, which was like the first Portuguese utopian prophecy. And he
Around which time was this that he wrote that?
Let me check, because I was so into this, because I don't want to be wrong. And people say, "Oh, come on, how could you be wrong about that?" So I have my notes just so. Now let me check. Okay, so it is thought that the book was written by the mid 17th century, but it was only published after Antonio Vieira's death in 1718. So it's
Okay.
and of course Father Antonio Vieira talks about the Fifth Empire, and that is it's the fifth. It's after the Assyrian, Persian, Greek, and Roman Empire, and this would be the last empire, the Portuguese Empire, which was to be a world empire. So it's kind of like the kingdom of heavens on earth. And as the second lieutenant Cabrita is explaining this to his colleagues, one of them said, well, how can it be done? Because he's telling, no, all religions, all races, they will all get along. I said, okay, but one of them asks, okay, but aren't we Catholic? Like, aren't we different? It's curious because he asks, aren't we different from the others? And Cabrita says, well, do you know what Catholic means? Catholic means universal. So this, and again, this is the shock, because of course, when some Portuguese philosophers, even soldiers, even common people think, well, we're Catholic, we're universalists. The rest of the world doesn't look at you like that.
No.
So we have to always remember that we don't choose our enemies. So you can say I love everyone, but there's always someone who will hate you. So
there's a reality out there. I wanna bring up a particular scene, which is toward the beginning, which is a very sort of Nietzschean sentiment. And it is when they're sitting on the truck basically during the first scene, and they talk about, I think they talk about what you said first there about the ancient tribes fighting against Rome, and they talk about Rome and the Roman Empire, and they compare Rome with the Russian Empire and the American Empire that are the current big empires fighting. And one of the guys here brings up, he says, he brings up humanitarian feelings, sentiments, and he says humanitarian sentiments, great powers only feel it when they've had enough. That's why they're big. So it's a very Nietzschean idea that when people, or Spengler was basically applying Nietzsche's philosophy to history, that you have these barbarian impulses to conquer, to take over, and then you reach a point when you become comfortable and then sentimental, and that's sort of when you're slowly going down, because there are other barbarians out there, and when you have become very humanitarian and complacent and satisfied with what you have, then you start to lose it right away. It's a very interesting so the great powers have only had it when they've had enough, which means that they're sort of in decline now.
Exactly. No, it's very, no. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's, I truly think that Oliveira, the director, never thought of a Nietzschean outlook or a Spenglerian outlook of his film. But there are so many aspects. It's curious, because I've discussed this film with some Portuguese authors and some people on the Portuguese right, conservative right, which look at this movie with a bit of disdain, saying, listen, this is a bit of a defeatist film, but at the same time love this idea of Portugal as a representative of a Catholic Universalist empire. And I'm sorry, but that's not reality. And reality has many sides, and some of them we don't see them. We can't see them. That's the, I think, the most mysterious and cryptic message of this film. It's very curious. And of course, I mentioned Father Antonio Vieira, but of course, I have to mention Camões, the great national poet, Portuguese national poet. Um, of course, the main character quotes Camões, obviously, and quotes and speaks about the Lusíads, which is the Portuguese epic poem written by Camões celebrating the Portuguese discoveries, and curiously dedicated to King Sebastian, who plays a major role also in this film. I don't know if you want to go there now.
Yeah, please go. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
yeah, because several of the episodes of this film, they of course they start with the Viriatus. Then of course they one of the characters says, well, Portugal was born of the Crusades. This is a very bold statement, which is true. Portugal is one of the sons of the Reconquista, the reconquest, the fighting against the Moors, the expelling the Moors from the Iberian Peninsula. But of course, to anyone that can place Portugal on a map, sees that on the west we have the Atlantic, on the east we have Spain, or Castile at the time, in medieval times. So this plays a major geopolitical issue. And of course, Officer Cabrita speaks about the Battle of Toro, which was a time when Portugal tried to become the main power in the Iberian Peninsula. Of course, this didn't happen, and fast forwarding, we had to turn to the other side, and that's when the discoveries started, more or less, because the starting of the conquest of the north of Africa, to nowadays Morocco, was like the continuity of the Reconquista. That's very, very interesting. And of course, then Cabrita takes us to the Battle of Alcácer Quibir, where King Sebastian led his troops to a terrible defeat that still today is seen like as the worst defeat in Portuguese history. I do remember, Frode, that my grandfather, who was a Navy officer, always told us, told me and my cousin, said, "Listen, you are the sons of those who did not go to Alcácer Quibir. Like you are the sons of the lesser Portuguese." So there was still this idea on the Portuguese
The great
military. So it's
Portuguese
like,
died,
yeah,
and the lesser ones are the ones that
yeah,
survived.
the lesser
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
were the ones that stayed. So it's ironical, but at the same time, it's tragical at the same time. So, of
yeah.
course, the film plays the Battle of Alcácer Quibir and the figure of King Sebastian in a way, how can I put it? Well, I studied history also, so I tend to look at this with my readings, but at the same time with my heart and with my feelings. And of course, I love King Sebastian, but traditionally he's always played as a child, which he wasn't, of course, as a fool, because he was too religious and he wanted to take us on a foolish crusade. Well, it was not that simple. But of course, mistakes were made. For instance, one of the things that the film plays is like the lack of preparation of the troops. That is not quite true, because King Sebastian looked for mercenaries all over Europe. He had a European feeling of this war. He actually he talked with his uncle Felipe from Spain and said, "Listen, uncle, we have to continue our war against the Moors, against Islam. We have to." I think there's a quote on the film where King Sebastian said, "We have to kill these perfidious dogs." It's terrible. And of course, he looks for well-trained mercenaries from all over Europe, and so we have, and that is actually seen on the film. We have Italians, Germans, Spaniards. It's quite interesting because it's a fight between Europe and on the other side, not only Moroccans, but other Muslims like the Turks, which were the military power at the time. So, and some historians nowadays say that, listen, this was a battle quite a bit ahead of its almost ahead of its time. So, and of course, if King Sebastian had won, he would be a European hero. Of course, nowadays he's a martyr. But the most important thing is that King Sebastian disappeared, as they say, in the battle. So his body was not brought to Portugal, nor seen by the troops, and then the legend began. Of course, we have similar legends with many European kings, King Arthur, first of all, Frederick Barbarossa. Well, we have that idea of a sleeping king, of a mountain king. It's quite it's archetypical, like you said before. But the difference between the King Sebastian and he brought to life a philosophy that we call nowadays Sebastianism, and that was very, very important in Portugal, obviously, because this was the idea that King Sebastian would be back in a morning of mist, would arrive at Column Pier in Lisbon, and he would bring victory and happiness forever. But after that, this myth continued in Brazil, for instance, and northeastern Brazil. Sebastianism was very, very, very popular. It's curious how some myths continue even in other countries, in other places, and of course it plays a major role in the film because the officer Cabrita, by the end of the movie, he's shot in combat, and he goes to a military hospital, and he eventually dies. And when he's dying, he's having a dream, a vision, we don't know, and there is King Sebastian in his vision. King Sebastian appears, but with a major difference. He picks his sword with the blade down, and he holds his sword.
Squeezes the blade.
Yeah, he squeezes the blade and starts bleeding as as the Lieutenant Cabrita is bleeding in the hospital, and he eventually dies. And this, well, as you can imagine, this scene, this finale has this ending has multiple interpretations. Of course, I think more or less, as the director himself said. Of course, the Oliveira said that this ending means that he's giving and not taking. And Officer Cabrita, King Sebastian, Portugal ends up giving more than taking, because this is very important, because there's a scene in the movie where Officer Cabrita Lieutenant Cabrita explains that the real power of empires is their legacy and not what they take from others, which nowadays is very, very politically incorrect.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
of
he talks
course,
about the Roman Empire. I mean, what they
exactly.
built, what's
But
what's behind is not their power, but what they built, the language, the philosophy, the political systems,
exactly,
everything they created. To a large extent, I mean, the
what they
America
built
has a
is in
Senate like
ruins.
ancient Rome, for example. I mean, this is these are the kinds of legacy that the old empires left behind. And there's another scene which I also highlighted in the Telegram chat, where the main character recounts the battle, and I think he quotes Sebastian or one of the other characters
Exactly,
who is
exactly,
dying there.
exactly.
And when they realize that the battle is lost, and they continue fighting, and they don't quit fighting, and so the question is, what else can we do here other than die? And he says, yes, but to die, yes, but slowly. So
Yes,
even if you know that the battle is lost, that you cannot win, there's honor in keep fighting, and to die slowly rather than to give up and die quickly. And I
yeah,
think that
it's
is also
right.
highlights very much of a sort of a tragic sentiment of
Exactly.
a lost Europe, or a lost anything that we care about. That even if the battle is lost, we should die slowly
Yes, it's a quote from King Sebastian at the Battle of
at the battle.
Alcácer Quibir, and it reflects as you said it, the European tragic spirit. It's very,
Yeah.
very, and by the end of the movie, there's a major detail, because the second Lieutenant Cabrita dies on April 25, 1974. And this is the date of the military coup that was called the Coronation Revolution, that ended the new state, the Estado Novo, the regime, the Salazar regime. And for many people, this meant that, listen, okay, the empire died, so all of the history of Portugal has, as Cabrita told us, died that day. And this is a new time, new Portugal, new philosophy, democracy, and here we go, happy, happy. But I don't think it's that simple. Again, we have to remind ourselves the name of the film and what non means, the eternal
Yeah.
return.
What is that? What is that? There is this toward the end. There is this um, a slightly cryptic speech where he gives this philosophical
Yeah,
speech. What is that? What does that speech mean?
yeah.
The the,
Well,
the dying the,
that's
the dying soldier, or the soldier
yeah.
who stabs himself. He
There's
talks
a
about
cryptic
this non. What
exactly.
does he mean by that?
Yeah, there's a cryptic character that comes by the end of the comes up by the end of the battle, and that's actually one of the sermons of Father Antonio Vieira, and
Mhm.
it's that message that we talk about the non, and the thing, the that the eternal return, that idea that things don't start or end, and this is like a cycle that never ends. And there's another interesting detail is that he kills himself like in a samurai actually kind of way. It's curious, like a Mishima, Portuguese Mishima. But
Yeah.
going back to the April 25, it's curious because I always thought that this means that even though Portugal lost main historical battles, and even though Portugal lost its empire, Portugal still lives on and lives on through its people. This is the I think the most important message of the film. Well, maybe someone will disagree, but it was always my reading of the cryptic, mysterious message of this Oliveira's masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a sort of he takes us through the full cycle. He begins in the ancient past with the beginning tribes, and then with the rise of empire, the greatness of empire, and then the fall of the empire. I want to ask a question, a super chat here from one person in the Montana Livre says, "Are the overseas wars Portugal's Holzwege moment, like a sort of existentialist question? The war is over, the empire is over. What is Portugal now? What is Portugal now?"
Well, Frode, it's wow, wow! Congratulations, good question. Yes, yeah, it's kind of a Heideggerian Holzwege, really, because where is this? Where are we going? Of course, after the end of the empire, many people thought, well, Portugal is dead. Portugal died. Many national. I remember many nationalists from the older generation saying, well, we're fighting for nothing because Portugal died. There's no Portugal. There's no Portugal without an empire. And of course, that's obviously wrong. As long as there's a Portuguese people, there is Portugal. At the same time, there's some people that say, well, no, as long, and this is the message this is the shock that I was telling you about, philosophical shock in the film, that there are people that think, no, Portugal can be a ruin, and through our legacy, which means through our language, through religion, Portugal lives on other places. Well, yes, I can say that's the legacy of the empire, but that doesn't mean that Portugal lives on. That's the legacy of the Portuguese Empire. Portugal is, as the soldiers so well put it, Portugal is our village, our fathers, our sons, our brothers, our family. That's at the end of the day what really matters: our village, our family. So I hope I answered our friends.
I think you did. I think you did. Let me just check
Perfect
if there are
question.
any other super chats that have come in. I think we answered them. Raven Keys sends $5 and Martial Law sends €10. I think those, maybe they came in yesterday. Actually, I can't really see exactly when they came in, so maybe I've already mentioned those. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. Do you have any final things you want to bring up about this film? Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, no, Frody, no, just thank you, and well, of course, I'll be watching the rest of the Decameron Film Festival, and listen, Frody, and I have to say, last year I told, well, I hope I'll be here next year, and and this time I'll say it again because it was a wish come true. So, Frody, well, and congratulations for this festival, which is a great experience, and I think it's the way that we can watch movies that otherwise we wouldn't never watch. So thank you, and thank everyone that's watching. Thank you for the brilliant question, and thank you, Brody.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I agree. This is an opportunity to watch films that we otherwise wouldn't have seen or even heard of. Khrushchev sends $5 as donation. Thank you so much. And yeah, absolutely. This is a film I wouldn't have had an opportunity to watch otherwise, and that's part of the purpose of this film festival. So thank you so much for this conversation. Tomorrow, I'll be back, and we are going to talk to Shambolics. And we're going to talk about JFK, the JFK murder. We're going to talk about JFK from 1991, another modern classic. We're probably going to get into some conspiracy theories about that and so on. It's a very good film. It's a very entertaining film as well, just in its own right. So we can look forward to that. That's tomorrow. As usual, you can see the full schedule on the website, decameronfilmfestival.com. So with those words, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's been active in the chat, everyone who's been watching. Of course, special thanks to the donors, and I will see you again tomorrow. Good night.